Hello everyone, Tanny here, and today I will be reading a story called Sonic X Pilot, The Time Sonic Finally Falls in Love by MarsMarty29. Chapter 1, Awakening in Glass. The first sensation was cold. Not the gentle chill of winter wind, or the refreshing coolness of shade on the summer day. This was an invasive, penetrating cold of sterile metal and chemical preservation. It seeped through skin, through muscle, through bone, settling somewhere deep in the marrow where warmth should have lived but didn't. The second sensation was sound. A low, mechanical hum, steady, eternal, unchanging. It vibrated through the glass that encased her, through the fluid that had cradled her in suspension, through every atom of her being. It was the sound of machines that had outlived their creators, still performing their duties in an abandoned temple of science. The third sensation was light, harsh, clinical, unforgiving. Amaya's eyes snapped open. For a moment, just a single crystalline moment, there was nothing. No thought, no memory, no identity. Just raw, primal instinct. I breathe, I'm alive. Then panic hit. Her ruby red eyes glowed faintly, with a sensation she didn't yet understand. Darted frantically around her prison, glass walls pressed close on all sides. Fogged with condensation and 50 years of neglect. Beyond the translucent barrier, she can make out the blurred shape of laboratory equipment. Tables overturned, computer screens dark and lifeless. Papers scattered across the floor like autumn leaves abandoned by time. Where am I? Her hands, small, gloved in nothing but her own black fur with crimson stripes, pressed against the glass. The surface was impossibly cold, and she jerked back instinctively, her breath coming short, sharp gasps that created small circles of fog on the interior of her prison. What is this place? The chamber around her was vast and empty, lit by flicker of fluorescent lights that buzzed with electrical irritation. Shadows pooled in the corners like spilled ink, and dust motes danced in the anemic light, performing a waltz of audience of ghosts. Then, without a warning, they came, memories. Not her own, or were they? They felt both foreign and intimately familiar, like recalling a dream upon waking up, where you're certain it happened, but can't quite prove it was real. A name resonated through her consciousness, like a bell tolling in an empty cathedral. Amaya the Hedgehog. The name felt right. It felt hers. She clung to it like a lifeline in an ocean of confusion. More memories flooded in. A deluge of images and sensations that threatened to drown her. The Ark. The space colony ark. She could see it now. Or was she remembering it? A massive space station floating in the violet darkness of orbit, its metallic surface catching the reflection of the light distant stars. Inside, long corridors gleamed with polished floors, laboratories hummed with energy, scientific progress. She could hear voices, kind voices, excited voices, voices filled with hope and wonder. Professor Gerald Robotnik, that name brought, with a face elderly, wise, with kind eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. A father figure, a creator. He had worn a lab coat, always slightly rumpled from long hours of work, and his hands had been gentle when they guided her through the first moments of consciousness. You're doing wonderful, Amaya. Your brother will be so proud. Brother. The word struck her like lightning. Shadow. Shadow the Hedgehog. Another face crystallized in her mind, so similar to her own reflection, yet different. Black fur with crimson stripes, red eyes that held depth of determination and purpose. He had been there when she first opened her eyes, 14 years old, in a body, but newly born in consciousness, awakened a full year after his own creation. Welcome, little sister, he had said, and though his voice had been gruff, there had been something soft beneath it, something that might have been called affection, if either of them understood the such concept then. More memories cascaded through her consciousness. Maria Robotnik, a young girl with blonde hair and eyes as blue as Earth from orbit. She had been fragile, confined to the ark by illness. Amaya's young mind hadn't fully understood, but her spirit had been anything but weak. Amaya had showed kindness, had brought her books, and taught her about the world below, had laughed with genuine joy at the smallest things. Amaya, look! You can see the sunrise from here. Isn't it beautiful? They had stood together at one of the ark's observation windows, watching Earth rotate slowly beneath them. And Amaya had felt something she would later understand as belonging. And then the memories turned dark. Gunfire, screams, chaos. GUN. The letters burned in her mind like brands. The guardian units of nations, Earth's military force, had come to the Ark with violence in their hearts and fear in their eyes. She remembered running through corridors now filled with smoke, emergency lights, her 14-year-old body moving in instinct. Shadow! Maria! Sorry, wrong name. Shadow! Amaya! Maria's voice desperate now, afraid. You have to hide, please! She remembered Shadow's hand gripping her wrist, pulling her through the pantinomium. She remembered the cold metal of a stasis pod against her back as Gerald's hands, shaking now, aged and desperate, worked to seal her inside. I'm sorry, the professor had whispered. She had seen tears track down his weathered face. I'm so sorry, my dear girl. You deserve so much more than this, but you'll be safe here, I promise. You'll sleep, and when you wake up, the world will be different, better. I promise. What about Maria? What about Shadow? What about you? She had asked, her voice small and frightened. But the pod had sealed before he could answer, and everything had gone dark. Dark, cold, and silent for 50 years. Back in the present, if the sterile nightmare could be called the present, Amaya's chest heaved with emotion she couldn't name. Anger, grief, betrayal, loss. They swirled together like a toxic cocktail that burned in her throat and that stung her eyes. 50 years. The number felt impossible, meaningless. How could time stretch so long? What happened to Maria? To Gerald? To her brother? Shadow. His name was a prayer, a plea. She had survived. Then surely he had too. The ultimate life form, Gerald had called him. Created to be perfect, immortal, unstoppable. If anyone can survive chaos and destruction, and had consumed the ark, it would be him. She had to find him. But first, she had to escape this glass prison. Amaya pulled back her fist, her muscles coiled with strength she instinctively knew she possessed, but had never tested. Chaos energy. She could feel it now, humming beneath her skin like electricity through wire, responding to her will, gathering in her hands with faint crimson glow. Break. The word was a command, a demand, a declaration of her right to exist outside the transparent coffin. Her fist contacted with the glass. Crash! The sound was thunderous. In the silent laboratory, a symphony of destruction as a spiderweb cracks through across the surface, spread outward from the point of impact like a froze in lightning. For a moment the glass held, stubbornly, refusing to surrender. Then it shattered. Crystalline fragments exploded outwards, and the cascade of glittering shards, catching the fluorescent lights and scattering onto thousands of tiny rainbows. The preservation fluid that kept her suspended poured out in a rush, splashing across the floor with a sound like a breaking wave. Amaya tumbled forward, her legs, unused for 5 decades, buckled beneath her. She caught herself with her own hands and knees, gasping and coughing as her lungs learned to process air again instead of oxygen fluid of the stasis chamber. Everything hurt. Her muscles screamed in protest at being asked to move. Her skin felt too tight, too sensitive, as if every nerve ending had been set to maximum reception. Her head pounded with the weight of recovered memories and distortion of awakening in a world that had moved on without her. But she was alive. She was free. Slowly and painfully, Amaya pushed herself to her feet. Her legs shook with effort, trembling like a newborn. Foul, taking its first steps. She locked her knees, refusing to fall, refusing to show weakness, even though there was no one there to see. The reflective surface caught an eye. A large mirror mounted on the far wall, cracked, but still functional. She staggered forward, each step more confident than her last. Her body remembered how to obey her commands. What she saw in that mirror stopped her cold. A young hedgehog stared back at her, 14 in appearance, just as she had been as she entered the pod. Her fur was midnight black, broken with striking crimson stripes that ran through her quills like veins of ruby through obsidian. Her eyes were the color of blood and garnets, glowing faintly with barely contained chaos energy. She looked like Shadow. The resemblance was undeniable. They were clearly siblings, shared the same distinctive color and build, but there was something else in her reflection, something that made her different. Where Shadow's features were sharp and severe, hers held softer qualities. Where his eyes burned with intensity and purpose, hers reflected uncertainty and vulnerability. She was completely, utterly naked. The realization hit her with delayed embarrassment. In the chaos of awakening and memory recovery, she hadn't noticed or cared about her state of undress. But now, seeing herself in the mirror exposed and vulnerable, shame colored her cheeks beneath her fur. I need clothes. The thought was practical, grounding. It gave her a goal, a purpose, something to focus on besides the overwhelming tide of emotion, threatening to pull her under. Amaya turned away from the mirror and began to search the abandoned laboratory. The space was larger than she had initially realized, stretching onto the shadows. That the falling lights couldn't quite penetrate. Workstations lined the walls, covered in equipment she vaguely recognized. Microscopes, computer terminals, analysis device, all collected dust and cobwebs. Papers were scattered everywhere, their edges yellow with age, covered in equations, notes written in Jero's distinctive handwriting. She forced herself not to read them. Not yet. She couldn't afford to be pulled back into memory when survival demanded her full attention. And in what had once been a storage closet, the door hanging off one hinge, she found salvation. A pile of discarded clothes, likely left behind by researchers who had never returned to claim them. Amaya rifled through the pile with growing desperation, her sensitive nose wrinkled with the musty smell of fabric that had sat untouched for half a century. Most of the items were too large, designed for adult humans rather than a teenage hedgehog. But at the bottom of the pile, she found pieces that could work. A black bodysuit, sleek and form-fitting, made from some kind of synthetic material that had weathered the years better than cotton or wool. She pulled it on, grateful for the way it hugged her form, providing her coverage and flexibility. Over that, an oversized black hoodie, far too large for her frame, but that was perfect. She could pull the hood up to hide her distinctive quills, to make herself less recognizable, less noticeable, in a world that had clearly moved on without her. Anonymity might be her greatest weapon. Black shorts came next. Practical, comfortable, and followed by the most surprising find of all, boots. Red and black boots that fit her feet as if they have been custom made, with sole designs for speed and combat. She had no idea why they had been in the storage closet, but she'd thank whatever twist of fate had left them there. Dressed now, Amaya felt markedly more secure. The clothes was an armor of some sort, not against not against physical threats, but against the vulnerability, against the exposure of awakening in a world no longer knew her. She found a backpack next, military grade, black, with multiple compartments. Into it she loaded everything that might prove useful. A first aid kit, hoping the medical supplies hadn't expired. Packaged food, not willing to risk eating 50-year-old provisions, but keeping them as a last resort. A flashlight. Its battery's dead, but perhaps she can find replacements. And water bottle. Empty, but functional. There was nothing worth taking. No weapons beyond her own abilities. No maps to tell her where she was or how to navigate the outside world. No communication device that still functioned. She was alone. The weight of that realization settled over her shoulders, like a physical burden. Shadow was out there, somewhere. She had to believe that, but she had no idea where the out there was, or how to find him, or even what year it was. 50 years. The world could have changed in ways she couldn't begin to imagine. Amaya pulled her hood of the oversized hoodie up, casting her face in shadows. In the cracked mirror, she looked like a ghost, a phantom from a forgotten time, neither fully present nor entirely absent. "I will find you, Shadow," she whispered to her reflection, her voice rough from disuse, but steady with determination. "I don't know how, but I will. We're family. We're all each other has left." The laboratory had nothing more to offer her. It was time to leave this place behind, to set out of the past and into whatever future awaits her. Amaya shouldered her backpack, squared her shoulders, and walked towards the exit. A heavy metal door stood slightly ajar, letting in a silver of darkness from whatever lay beyond. She didn't look back. There was nothing behind her but memories and ghosts. She had no intention of joining them in the eternal sleep. The doors groaned in protest as she pushed it fully open. The sound echoing empty laboratory like a farewell beyond. It laid a corridor, dark, ominous, leading to a place unknown. Amaya stepped through, and the door swung shut behind her with a faint finality that felt like a grave closing. Well, that's it for chapter 1. I hope I get to read the chapter 2 in like 2 days, so that we can continue with this story. I was pretty shocked that someone would make a story based on something completely different from the Sonic X Pilot anime. That's all for today. So, Stay tuned if you want to hear the rest. I'm pretty sure they're updating since this is a new story. Thank you for listening. See you when I upload the next one. Bye.